Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Brian, joined by my co-host, Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share their thoughts and perspectives on marriage. We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. This week's episode is entitled Holding Your Value. We'd like to talk to you about how we can make a promise to our wives on who we want to be and then not regress. We want to stay consistent.
And before we get all the way into the episode, we just want to encourage everyone to lean into community. That's reaching out on all of our social media platforms, searching Marriage is Tougher. Hit us up on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Just DM us if you have any questions or any comments. Also, you can go to marriageisttougher.com, which is our website. You can get all of our archived episodes there, as well as if you'd like to be a guest, fill out the contact form, and we'll reach out to you and get you on the pod. All right, let's jump all the way in.
Yeah. So, holding your value. Man, I think used to struggle with this. I would make promises and sometimes find it difficult to hold up my end of the bargain, we'll say. I don't necessarily know why that was. I think that I did learn, however, that there were some things blocking me from doing so. Top being allowing my wife to be my accountability partner, right? Like that's, I think, something that was intended with our marriage, right? She should automatically be your accountability partner. But I think for me, I struggled with that maybe because I didn't necessarily know how to do that, or I didn't know how to allow her to be that. Right. Coming up, it was easy for me to have other men in my life be accountability partners. But I don't think I ever taught myself or learned necessarily how to allow, I guess, a spouse. How do I allow them to be that for me? Right. How do I give them that permission? And then not just give them that permission, but have myself be beholden to those quote unquote permissions that I've given them.
Man, that's that's what we're jumping into. Heard you. No, that's very good. I'd say for me, it was a humility issue, right? Because if you think about it, you have to be open and vulnerable to. And for me, I didn't know how to bring things up, and instead, so the whole accountability partner thing, kind of our society has it um, in a certain way that they do, but really the best way to be an accountability partner is just have someone that you bring your things to, not someone that searches out, right? So,
Okay.
and I think as we've been married and as we've grown, and I know I can speak for both of us on that, so we've figured out how to communicate expectations and then talk through when they were either met or not met. And at the beginning of our marriage, we had to figure out how to do that, which is one of those things like you kind of feel like you already know how to do that with your boys or another person or maybe a superior because they're just going to be more open to doing it. But with your spouse, there's that level of vulnerability that you're not used to having because she literally sees everything. And so it's tough for you to give an account to her when you haven't done the thing, right? Like, so I'm going to hide until she brings it up. And then we're both going to feel some type of way because it didn't happen and it was because of me.
Oh, so you just firing shots too then. Oh,
Right?
that's crazy. Yeah, that is so accurate. I would, I don't know, hide is a good word. And I think maybe the better word is cower, right?
Yeah. It's all
And
avoidance.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And it's like, I'm just gonna be over here under this blanket until she pulls it off. And like, I see you, right? And all the things that haven't been done. But
Right.
yeah, man, that is being being exposed feels different in marriage, like you said, than it does being exposed to your boys or at work. Because to some extent, in that world, it is, I guess, easier to convince yourself that part of yourself is still hidden,
Right. Even
right?
if it's not true, it's easier to convince
Right,
yourself.
right, exactly, exactly. Because there's been times when I've been out there and thought something was unknown, and it has been brought to my attention that like we knew, we were just giving you a chance to be better.
Yeah.
Like, oh, all right, sorry
Yeah.
about
The tough part about that is your wife walks you through the getting better.
that.
And in outside spaces, it's kind of like, all right, I'm going to give you a chance to figure it out on your own and then present yourself as better. Right. But your
Right,
wife is in the mix of that not together part. She's in the molding, she's in the pounding, she's in the pressing. And then it's
yeah,
like, oh, here's this cup that I, molded together. Like with your friends and you're on your job, you're just like, oh, here's this cup I did.
right,
Right. Right.
yeah,
Maybe you have a coworker or a really close friend that helps you walk through whatever it is. But when you present it to the group, everyone just sees this finished product. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's that. But your wife is like, nah, that was messy. It was dirty. We had to shave some things around. We had to push something together. So you, all of your life is shown with your spouse, and that makes it a little different.
yeah. Well, she's more affected by it the entire time,
Mm,
through every stage, through all of the processes, right? And I think that's something key to learn as well, right? Your your wife needs you to be a certain version of yourself, but she experiences every version of yourself. Okay, so while you are intending to be better and while you are trying to be better, the pain of going through that is not only felt by you, and especially if you're in a scenario where she is trying to pull you up and she's carrying weight that you should be sharing. That is that is a difficult thing for one person to handle, especially when they can see your potential that you haven't necessarily reached yet. And then on the back of that, you're also making promises that you're slipping up on, or having setbacks. It's I can see that being a very difficult thing to process day in and day out, knowing that this is where we could be, not just you as a husband, but we as a couple. And, the progress not being made as quickly as maybe she feels it could be made, or as quickly as she would like it to be occurring. Whatever your reality is, it is. But you know I can see that being real tough.
man, that is a thing that we have to build toward. And talking about, it's really working through, it's really kind of building blocks, right? So we're at one space, and maybe, at the beginning of our marriage, we didn't even know we had some issues, right? I think we're great. And then we're exposed in our marriages, as that's what's supposed to happen. Um, as it's a mirror of ourselves. Our spouse is a mirror of ourselves, and they should tell us, just like a mirror, hey, like, you got a little toothpaste right here. Like, they should not let you walk out the house with toothpaste on your face.
Right.
Um, and we don't like sometimes. Um, but it's about growth and talking through the growth and making progress. Not not to say that we'll ever be perfect, but we have to be working towards being better. And I think the value, right, is it's the what's the definition? The regard of something that is held to deserve the importance, worth, or the usefulness of something, right? So
Mhm.
we want to be of worth in our marriage. We want to make sure we're useful, like all those things. We want to have importance. And so as we are learning that we're not so amazing in all the things that we think we are, those things that we are pretty strong in, we have to make sure we stay strong in those. And we have to make sure that we come to an agreement with our wives on how to move forward in those areas that we're not. I think the toughest part is of growth and holding our values, so to speak, is coming up with a plan together on how to get better. And in that plan, having markers and conversations of what shows growth and what happens if there isn't growth. I think a
Mhm.
lot, as I'm thinking right now, a lot of times we forget the what happens if we're not progressing as fast as we want to.
Right.
What's that plan? And I've actually never thought of that until right now. I've had some conversations of that, but we should think about it's not a contingency. It's just the how do we get on track if we're not moving as fast, if that makes sense.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, you have to be willing to, adapt and change plans if what right now is not working to the desired effectiveness. Right. And that goes with all things in life. If there's somewhere you want to be, right? If you're driving to a destination and you see on Google Maps that there's a 15-minute slowdown, but there's an alternate route that'll save you 7 minutes. Like, I'm probably going that alternate route, right? Why deal with the frustration of being held still when you could still be moving, maybe on a different path, but in a different on a different route? I think something we also need to mention is, and I think you started on the path a little bit, but the things that we feel that we're good at, our values that we know we're strong in, communicating those to our wives to make sure that those are seen, right? And the reason I bring that up is there can be times when you are working on yourself, and if we only make the focus the things that we are deficient in, it can sometimes make you tend to devalue yourself. Okay. So it is important, as we would with our children, not to necessarily compare the two, but it is important that we also build ourselves up as we improve, right? And I think it was important for me to make that communication to my wife because, you know, I needed to know, even though she was pointing out my faults, that she still saw the good in me, right? I didn't want to be made to feel like there was nothing that I'm doing that was of value to her, or there was nothing that I was doing that added value to our household, or, that, more specifically, I guess, that I wasn't chipping in to make our household better, right? Um, so I would ask, like, what are your thoughts on that? How can we have that type of conversation?
I think that is a great point. That is probably the key to holding your value because there are good things that we're actively successful at within our marriage. And you want to continue to grow in the things that are not at that level. And when we the things we focus on become our reality, right? So
Right.
there, I think just speaking of it that way is in the communication of, hey, I'm trying, what are some areas that you think I need to grow in? We get feedback on what we both think should be the area of focus right now, or a couple areas. It's like, okay, well, these are the steps to do that. In this, as I'm working on these, let's not hyper focus on these. Let's remember, all the good things that we're, the strong areas, the things that we're good at, so that we don't, obsess about these and this becomes the end all be all in our marriage. Because if this was the end all and be all of our marriage, it wouldn't be where it is right now, because we've had some
Mm.
good kind of, um, we've had some good times. I mean, we're having a good space right now. And even if you're struggling in your marriage, pointing out the good is the foundation that allows you to build, like we talked about earlier, building off of where you are to get to where you want to go. And you have to have something strong as a foundation. And, even if it's you and your marriage, you have foundational things that you've already identified, and just, bring those up like, hey, let's remember to, think about or talk about our foundations, or whatever you call them, or our pillars. And, those things that we're strong in, continue to bring those up and call those out when we're calling out those things that we need to work on as well.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about one other piece that I want to bring up. There are, I'll say, agreed upon areas of improvement, and then there are also selfish areas of improvement. So for me and my wife, what I think I needed her to see was how hard I was working outside the home to become a better income earner. Right. That was important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And while it was important to her, it was not as important to her as me also being a better contributor within the household. Right. So it was very difficult for us to tackle this conversation when I felt she wasn't seeing how hard I was working. Right. And it made it easier for me when she just acknowledged that she saw that part of me. Right. But then it was easier for me to accept the critiques as well. Right. Like she would say just a simple thank you sometimes. Thank you for being the man you are out there, working as hard as you are. You know, um, I see you. And then, it was, but I still need help with this laundry. But it's how life works, man. Like sometimes you need to be built up to hear the hard stuff. Um, I mean, that's simply just what has worked for us. So I'll put that out there for anybody who wants to hear it. Run with it, use it.
That's a,
Hopefully, it encourages you to find what works for you.
that's a good point. I think all of us at some level want to be seen and want to be acknowledged for the hard work and the effort that we're putting in the areas that contribute, that we feel contribute, that we know are necessities. And just like you said, just a little I see you or a little thank you can help go a long way. So even, I know sometimes that feels awkward to say that you need that, but give that a shot. If you're struggling with, or even if you're not struggling, if you're going into this conversation, try to identify those areas that you want to be seen in, or you think that maybe you're not seen in, and just talk about those areas and just tell your spouse, hey, like anytime you remember, just let me know that you see what I'm doing. Like, because most of the time we know it's seen or it's obvious or we know it's a thing, but sometimes just vocally hearing it is a decompressor in the situation, and it'll actually like help you move forward in those areas that you're trying to improve.
Yeah. And I mean, to be very honest, sometimes when you know it's a scene, but it's not mentioned, it can make it feel like you don't care about that. And vice versa. If you see how hard she's working,
Mm-hmm.
be sure to mention it. Be sure to, let her know that you're thankful for who she is, who she's becoming, who she has been. That has been important for me as well because I mean, she's held me up as women do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, that's all I got. Unless you have something else to add.
I think that's it. That's We've hit everything that we need to. It really comes down to humility, communication, and acknowledgement. If we can do those things, we'll be able to uh, hold our value and build off of what we have currently, so that in the next 6 months, 6 years, we'll continue to grow as husbands. So, with that, if you have any comments or questions, you totally agree, totally disagree, uh, hit us up on social media searching Marriage is Tougher. Hit us up on our DMs there, or you can go to marriageistoffer.com. Again, leave a comment, check out any other episodes. Thanks again for taking some time to converse with us, and we will see you next time.
Peace.